What is up, Fight fans? I am Jason BURGOS for Sherdog.com, and today I will be playing home studio anchor as I talk with what is pretty much our UFC 249 correspondent down in Jacksonville, Florida. But he is just no regular field correspondent. He's a member of the UFC roster who made his debut in February, and he will also be cornering teammate Bryce Mitchell for his bout on Saturday night. And that is downtown TJ Brown. TJ, my man, how are you? And how's the weather in lovely Jacksonville?
Great. Today's the best day so far. The weather's beautiful. I actually got a chance to go on the beach yesterday, man. And I'm really just glad to be out of the house. You know, with everything that's going on, man, it's nice. Just get out of the house and get a little different environment and get back to doing what
So
we do
the
best.
first and most important question I have to ask is, how was it getting that gigantic Q-tip stuck in your nose, and did any bits of your brains come out with it?
Oh my gosh, it was awful, man. I don't know if you've seen some of the other guys' videos, man. They stick that swab about 6 inches up your nose, man, and twist it about 4 or 5 times. It's awful, man. It's painful. They also did a
Mm.
blood test as well, but luckily I'm corona free, and I think mostly everybody here has been as well, or if not everybody. And but that's to be expected with everything going on, you know. And it's nice to know we're all going into a clean environment, and they're doing everything they can up here to keep things as spick
And
and
that,
span
I
as
mean,
they
it's
can.
good to hear as a regular person, because you guys are fighters. You're used to somebody trying to attack you in a cage, and to hear that it was terrible. I just talked to Brian Kelleher. He's not looking forward to this test at all. It makes me feel a little bit tougher. That the toughest people I know are like, "Oh my God, this thing is terrible."
It was awful, man. It catches you off guard. The nurse there, she totally lied to me. She said it just kind of tickles a bit. Well, she lied. It
And
hurts.
we talked a little bit while we were, trying to set this interview up. Did you hear? Do you have to get that test again? I mean, Brian also told me there's doing the antibody, like you mentioned, the blood. Do you have to get the COVID test again before the
Yes.
fight, or if you stay on the grounds in the hotel, you're good?
Um, I believe all the fighters have to be tested again before the fight. Now, the corner men, I don't believe so. I think we're clear as long as we're staying here at the hotel. But every one of the fighters have to be tested again once
Now,
again before their
from
fight.
what I've been told, did based on what the UFC is telling people that haven't been down there yet, the guys and women that are coming down on Wednesday and next Friday and stuff like that, that they're supposed to. It seems like it's a pretty good setup. That they have individual workout rooms. There's supposed to be saunas for everybody, meal prep, 24-hour restaurant going. But you've
Yeah.
been there. These people are going to be there. You've already been there for a few days. How would you rate how everything is set up? Is it even better than you thought in the midst of a pandemic? What the UFC has done?
Yeah, I totally did not know what to expect. You know, I did expect they would be doing their best to take as much precaution as possible, but they've done a great job lining everything up and putting things together for the fighters. Like every morning we wake up, we have to come down here and get our temperature took and checked in and go through a few different questions and things. So it's ran great. And as soon as we got here, you know, they had everybody lined up and put through the process. And I think the UFC has done a great job of keeping everything clean. And as like you talked about with the workout rooms, you know, you get done working out, they come in
Mm.
there and clean the place up. Everybody has their own individual room, which is really unique. And as well as everybody's got their own sauna to cut in. Everybody's got their own individual sauna. So they really took extra measures to make sure everybody is taken care of and it's the most
Is
healthy
it like the
environment possible.
no? Are there even regular guests in this hotel, or it looks like the UFC pretty much took over the whole hotel?
I don't think so. I think they had an area that they said the National Guard, some National Guard was here, but I'm pretty sure the
Wow.
whole hotel is
So
just
what
UFC.
has the camp been
Yeah.
like for you guys down in Arkansas before you even got to Jacksonville? Has the state been able to get through this pandemic without taking a major hit? And did you all have to come up with some unique and creative ways to make this camp close to normal, a normal camp, or maybe Arkansas isn't that bad and you guys were able to use the gym much more frequently?
Yeah. I believe Arkansas was a little bit more lenient
Mm.
compared to some of the other states. However, as a whole, most gyms and small businesses are taking a
Mm.
huge hit right now. Our gym's taking a huge hit. We're not able to run our full classes, which really takes a toll on us. But luckily for me and Bryce, me and him were able to get in with a couple coaches throughout the week and get everything done and train just like we normally do. But as far as the business aspect, man, we've really taken a hit, as well as, like I said, many other small businesses. But as far as training, man, Bryce he's ready to go, man. He's in phenomenal shape. He's been training hard, and we've been able to get everything done. I don't know if the homegrown fighter they actually they did a documentary on this last fight camp. You know, it'd be interesting to some people to see how we were able to train during the Corona whole pandemic.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting documentary. You know, to get a good uh, look
And
into
I've
how the
been able to
camp
talk
went.
to like doing this like coronavirus chronicles thing I was doing for like the last month, talking to fighters that maybe they hadn't fought in a while and they fought maybe last year, and because of the pandemic they couldn't get a fight. They were going to be on one of those April or March events, and those got postponed and different promotions, stuff like that. Do you almost in a way feel lucky that you were able to get your fight in February, right before this really got pretty bad? And also, has, like you mentioned, like the restrictions and jobs, like has it affected what's going on like at the gym? Have you felt any financial stretches because of the gym being closed?
Yeah, I think it was good and bad. You know, I didn't know
Mm.
this was going to happen, of course, and I was glad to get my fight and have that opportunity. But at the same time, you know, the fight didn't go
Mm.
as I wanted to, so that left me in an area to where, man, I was
Mm.
so eager and I was so ready to get back, and then this hit, and I've been so hungry to get back in there. So in a way, it kind of hurt me because of the timing. You know, I was ready to take a fight. I was
Mm.
ready to get right back in there. I've talked to my manager Jason. I was ready to get right back in there, but this whole deal happened. But luckily, you know, I've been talking to Sean and Jason, everybody up here, and hopefully we'll get something lined out soon, maybe in June. So I'm just trying to stay ready, and you know, being here at the UFC and seeing the fights
Mm.
start to go back off, it really gets me excited. You know, to see everything going and everybody's pumped up. You can feel the tension in the air. You know, it's really exciting, and I just I'm super pumped for Bryce, but at the same time I'm a little jealous it's not me, you know, because I'm so excited to get back in there and compete again. So this whole experience here at 249 has just got me so hungry just to get
What
back in
have
there,
been
you know.
the opinions of friends and family as you trained, worked out with him, and stuff like that, doing business in this sort of business that's the antithesis of social distancing? Has your mom or your wife been annoyed
Yeah,
about it? You know, especially since you're not in the fights. You know, you're not getting the
yeah,
major payday. Have you? You know, people been supportive
yeah.
of the whole thing?
That's a great question, man. You know, initially, no, especially my grandparents were not real happy that I was still training and
Yeah.
doing things like that, you know, and they would do a smart of them, you know, from what we're told that is the smart, intelligent thing to do. They were not happy at all, and for me, business wise, it didn't help me business. You know, a lot of my income comes off of private lessons. You know, I teach
Mm.
private lessons here at the gym, and I probably dropped off half of my
Wow.
clientele through all this, you know. So I'm so ready for this to just to get back to normal and everything get back. But I've tried to take the best precautions possible. You know, keeping the mats and the mitts and gloves disinfected as much as possible, and showering and washing my hands and taking the right precautions
And
as
when I was
much as
doing the
possible.
series and talking to people, I talked to people that did similar things or own gyms, and a lot of them went to digital. Were you able to do something like that and still maintain, contracts with people and deals, or people like, no, if it's not in person, I can't do digital?
Yeah. So as me just being helpful and trying to help some of our clientele out, I put out some
Mm.
free videos, you know,
Yeah.
just to keep people engaged and try to keep people moving, you know, because I know how important exercise is for myself. You know, I need to work out. You know, it helps me
Mm.
both physically and mentally. So I knew how important that was. So I put out a few free videos or workouts, but no, I haven't been able to take advantage of any Zoom classes or anything like that, you know, to kind of keep clientele going. But hopefully here in Arkansas, we are able to start back our classes just
Mm,
at a lower percentage. We
yeah.
can't have full capacity in there. So, and there's some rules with the distancing and things like that. So hopefully we're about to
How
get
do
the
you
ball
like
rolling
this
again.
fight for your guy, Mr. Thug Nasty? I mean, Rosa is a crafty fighter. He showed that in the Bermudez fight after being away for
Yeah.
nearly 3 years. His neck is healthy. He's ready to go. He's ready to get back in action. I talked to Charles, too, last week.
Right.
Felt very confident, which you would assume. He also mentioned that he feels his striking in that time away has gotten better. He feels his power is there because his neck is healthy. What makes
Yeah.
you feel good about Bryce's chances heading into this fight? Even though he doesn't have a ton of fight, he's a wily veteran, Charles Rosa.
Right. I think it's a very interesting matchup. They're both
Mm.
black belts in jiu-jitsu, so it's going to be an interesting matchup on the ground. Me being with Bryce, I think a lot of people look at Bryce's stature and his physique, and
Mm.
they underestimate him. But I'm here to tell you, I am a, I played college ball. I'm a very athletic guy, and he's I've got a few pounds on him, but that kid is strong, and not only is he strong, he's got a tank,
Mm.
to go 3 rounds hard. So I think it's a very interesting matchup. And you mentioned the striking. I think a lot of you guys have slept on Bryce's striking. Like that kid has got some. He doesn't have any previous boxing or kickboxing matches like I do. But man, he can sit there and stand with me
Mm.
any day of the week. And I think if it comes down to standing, he's going to surprise a lot of people in the UFC of how good
And
his
what's funny is
striking
I
really is.
asked Charles, because they'll often the MMA idea sometimes is when two strong styles meet, it'll cancel each other out and it'll go the other way. With him and Manny, even though they're both very good grapplers, they still went to the ground. But I suggested, does he think, since Bryce is such a strong grappler, will this be a fight that ends up on the feet? And that's why he brought up the striking and his power feeling back. Do you think this might be something that goes that way because they're such good grapplers? It might be one of those fights that just ends up a striking brawl on the feet. And do you like Bryce's chances from what you said?
It might. I actually, it, yeah, it might. I actually thought about that. I thought that they might end up doing a little more striking than
Mm.
people are thinking. I know Bryce likes to go to the
Yeah.
ground. He's so strong and his wrestling so good, and he's able to control the fight with his wrestling so well. But I would not be surprised if we see more striking than what people think, and it may end up being a good
How
little
has
striking match
Bryce's
too.
overall demeanor been for this fight? Charles and ATT has been pretty much been open that gym and going on and everything. Is Bryce confident as ever heading into this? Is there a little concern maybe at certain points maybe he didn't get the kind of training he would hope, and which would be a normal thing? Like, what do you think? He does he
Yeah,
seem as confident as he ever would in normal camp?
yeah. I think physically and mentally he's ready to go. He's at 100%. Again, we were able to train and he was able to train as much as to be expected. However, one thing that people, I don't know if they're thinking, he has seen where Charles Rosa has been talking a little crap, So Bryce is fired up. He's seen some of Charles Rosa's interview talking about taking one of his limbs and this and that. And
Mm.
man, Bryce is fired up and he's ready to go in there and prove something to some people. So, a mad Bryce isn't good, So he may go in there and really take it to him. Like he's ready. He's there to take business. He's a little turned up, so I might see a little more
Now,
aggressive Bryce out
let's
there.
get back to talking about you. You kind of already answered the question I was going to ask about when do you think you'll get back in the cage. It's good to hear. You hopefully June or something like that's a possibility. Now, of course, I want to talk
Right.
about the debut. Yeah, it didn't go how you wanted it, and it didn't work out. But how was the experience of just the stage overall for you? The interviews in the lead up, the media day, the weigh in, that first walk to the cage. Was it everything you had
Yeah.
visualized and saw in your mind? Or was it even bigger? Was it surreal? Was it something you're just gonna cherish the rest of your life?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Mm.
everything I've been working for, man. For years I've watched UFC, and I was like, man, I want that. I want to be there, and man, everything was great from being up on the
Mm.
ESPN interview, to the walkout, to being in the back, to being pampered for a week. It was everything I dreamed of, man. And to be honest, man, that
Mm.
camp was perfect, man. My camp was perfect. Leading up to the fight was perfect, man. And if you look at the stats, I was 5 for 5 on all of my takedowns. I outstruck him. I got caught. And in MMA, those things happen. And that's easier said than done, having to swallow that pill of that happening. But when you look at the stats, I was beating him everywhere. I got caught, I'm just ready to get back in there and show everybody really how good I am. But the UFC experience was everything they talk about, man. It was great, and it was great being treated as a professional athlete well. And I I love the attention. I love the performing in front of the stage. So, the lights were great. It was all great. I'm just eager to get back in there and perform to my full abilities and get the W and bring the W
Now,
back to
give me
Arkansas.
some examples, because a person that doesn't have to go through fighting on, working their way up, doing the regional scene, working their way up to the UFC, how the differences. Like, I've been in backstage for like amateur events, so you've seen what it's kind of like. For you, what were like say 3 big differences, as you say, the being pampered by the UFC compared to, working your way up? Like, what's some of the things that stand out? Like, damn, I didn't get this, a year or two ago. This is amazing.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I would say one that first is like, man, you go back to the locker room, in the UFC, you go back there and you have your whole wardrobe set up like a NBA star. You have your kit, your shorts and everything set out. You got your own mat where along the regional scenes. Remember, I had 10 amateur fights and 20 pro fights before I got to the stage. You're fighting. And sometimes you're warming up outside. You're in this little bitty bathroom or something. Like, I've warmed up in some messes. You know what I mean? That would be one big thing. Yeah. The production for sure, man. The production. You're back there warming up. They got a cameraman in your face, and you walk out and there's the big lights, the jumbotron, man. That would be another. And it just meant the UFC. I don't know if a lot of people, I think it goes unappreciated. There's a lot of guys walking around with blue shirts on, and those guys, man, they really make sure you're taken care of, man. And they don't. I don't know if they get enough appreciation, man. They're back here. If you need something, you go to one of them. They find what you need, or they tell you what the day is going to look like. They schedule everything out. And man, I think a lot of those guys go unappreciated. And I think they should get a lot of appreciation.
Now, you have a close bond with your son, like many fathers with their sons. Was it a huge deal for him to see Dad on television, in the octagon, all that kind of stuff? And then on the flip side, did he take the loss, hard? Because kids are much more emotional. Did the loss even bother him more than you?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. One popular one is, you see Max Holloway, his son, getting real upset. When he lost that fight, to Poirier, and got really upset, man. That's real. My son, for his age, I feel like he's a very mature kid. He understands a lot, and he's around it all the time. And not to mention, he's a UFC fan. He was so pumped to be there. He's in the lights, but sometimes it worried me. He was really upset seeing his dad lose, and I see sometimes that how nervous, is my fiance. She'll tell you how nervous my son got, before my fight. He was over there breathing heavy, really nervous. But and let me say this too with that. One good thing that comes from that is that's how life is. In life, you're going to take some losses. In life, you're going to fail. But you know what? Just like his dad's going to do and continue to do, is when you fall, you get back up and you get back to work. And that's one thing he needs to learn now, And although it's a tough lesson, it's a good lesson.